Om. We continue our study of the Ishavasya Upanishad. On a few days ago, we had done the first part of the Ishavasya Upanishad. This is a short but a very profound Upanishad with just 18 verses, in many ways comparable to the Bhagavad Gita with 18 chapters. The first part primarily dealt with Brahma Vidya. This part deals with various forms of karma and upasana. The first 6 verses that we are going to study today are a little controversial in their wording, which requires a deep interpretation. One has been given by Adi Shankara, which we will be going through. We have very senior students who will be explaining that. The last 4 are very delightful, bhakti-oriented mantras, which should be part of our evening prayer. We will begin with Karthik. It is your time, Karthik, to explain verse 9.
Thank you, Doctor. Yeah, as you said, the last part of the Upanishad, the 4 mantras, starting with Hiranmayana Patrena, they are very profound, they are very delightful, they are very nice, and they are very powerful too. They are used in almost all of the Shubhakaryas that we do, including even in Devasthanas and even at home when we perform a function. These 4 are chanted loudly and enthusiastically by everyone around because they are very popular too. So 15 and 16 talk about Surya Devata, 17 talks about Ishta Devata, and 18 talks about Agni Devata. And these are all the gods that resonate with people that are praying. So what is the locus standi of the person that is chanting these prayers? What is his attitude? How should an attitude be? What is the mental makeup? And what actually is he saying? I mean, who is he actually invoking and why? That is talked about in the mantras, in the preceding mantras, 9 to 14. That is karma and upasana. So prior to these mantras, there is 3 mantras which talks about the second upasana. There is one sadhana which is called samuchaya, which talks about upasana dvaya samuchaya. And 9 to 11 talks about the first samuchaya. I'll talk about samuchaya in a bit. So the first one is called karma upasana samuchaya, and the second one is called upasana dvaya samuchaya. And subsequent to that are the chanting of these powerful, delightful, profound mantras. So mantra 9 is laying the ground for the first samuchaya. So that's about it. So now Shankaracharya, after Ishavasya Midam Sarvam, the first mantra is talks about everything. I mean, the first pada of the first mantra is done. It is the entire Vedanta, Bhagavad Gita, everything all around. So, but from mantra 9 onwards, there is this slight change in the direction of the Upanishad. It talks about Karma Yoga. So the first mantra is detailed between 3 and 8 mantras, and the second mantra is detailed between 9 and 14. So that is the Karma Yoga part. Kurvaneha Karmani is actually the Karma Yoga part. So here the mantra 9 talks about 2 things: Samuchaya and definition of Vidya and Avidya. Shankaracharya has written an elaborate commentary prior just to this mantra, after mantra 8, talking about Samuchaya and defining Vidya and Avidya. So Samuchaya, what is this? It sounds very cryptic. It's nothing. It's like idli and chutney. Okay, so idli by alone is not so great. Chutney by alone is not so great. Anna by alone is not so great. Huli by alone is not so great. But when you mix it, when you combine it, the sum is greater than its parts. That's so says integer theory and so on. So the sum is called samuchaya, is greater than the individual parts. So he goes on to say about Vidya and Avidya in the same way. Now, he talks about Vidya and Avidya in a slightly different way. So Vidya here in this mantra means Upasana, and Avidya means Sakama Karma. Now, why is Vidya referred to here as Upasana? Number 1, Upanishad doesn't mention anything called upasana. So Shankaracharya is confined to the terminology that is listed in the Upanishad, and so he takes his own interpretation, and that is a very popular interpretation, and that is how we interpret it also. So now Vidya is referred to upasana because, see, Vidya means activity, some kind of activity. There is a connotation of karma. So once there is a connotation of karma or activity, Jnana is automatically precluded. It is excluded from, because it is in a totally different paradigm. So that is one. And another thing is, based on Nyaya and Shruti, he talks about, did I hear a bell? Sorry. Vidya needs to be understood as upasana associated with karma as a samuchaya component. Then avidya means sakama karma, that is bereft of any association with the thing. Let me go directly to the mantra. So, te pravishanti andam tamaha. Some set of people, they enter a dense darkness. What kind of people? Ye avidyayam upasate. Those who follow avidya or sakama karma in a dedicated manner. Upasate is dedicated manner. We're looking at it in Kena Upanishad also. Avidya is something other than vidya or knowledge, because karma is opposed to knowledge. The drift is that those who are continuously performing Agnihotra alone fall into darkness. The next part, this is a condemnation of Kevala karma. The second condemnation comes here. Ye rataha, those revelers. Rataha means revelers. Those who are enjoying, those who are engaged in Vidyayam, in Vidya. Vidya here means upasana, as told earlier, as in the mantras that follow, worship of deities and all that. That is Vidya. Te pravishanti tamaha, bhuya iva tataha. They enter into a darkness which is many times darker than the earlier darkness. To summarize, by performing Kevala karma, one goes on to ordinary naraka, that is of pleasures. By performing Kevala upasana, one goes on to a greater Mahanaraka, that is even greater pleasures only. But Naraka is temporary. Remember that. So really speaking, this is not true. But the Upanishad only wants to glorify something else. That is the Samuchaya, that is Idli Chutney together. So don't drop karma or upasana, but realize when performed in combination, one can realize the best possible benefit. 10th mantra talks about individual, how idli is good by itself, chutney is good by itself. And the 11th mantra underlines that idli plus chutney is the most effective way of eating both. Thank you, Doctor.
Thank you, Karthik. Very nice. Good beginning with a very clear idea of what is Vidya, what is Avidya as defined by Adi Shankara. And then you emphasize about Samuchaya through examples which we can relate to. Dr. Ravi Shankar, it's your time, please.
Hari Om, sir. Anya Devahura Vidyaya, Anya Devahura Avidyaya, Iti Shushrumadhira Nam, Yenastadvicha Chakshire. This is how the 10th shloka verse goes. I would like to re-emphasize that the 9th to 18th shloka is an elaboration of Karma Yoga, which is the second mantra. And the 9th to 14th is particularly on sadhana. And there's a lot of cryptic meaning. We need a guru to decide. This sadhana is either karma, upasana, samuchaya, or the upasana dvaya samuchaya. 9th, 10th, 11th is a wave. 9th and 10th is an explanation, but the message is given in the 11th. The terms we need to understand here is vidya, avidya, sambhuti, asambhuti. Nivritti marga, which is the sannyasa ashram, and pravritti marga, which is the grahastha ashram. Vidya in Veda is knowledge. But the Guru says, avidya here is karma, and vidya here is kevala upasana, which is karma rahita. Sakama upasana benefit. What is the benefit of vidya is explained in this shloka. Sakama vidyayam praptam phalam. And that is Shuklagati, going to the Brahma Lokas. The byproduct is siddhis. It is also very clearly explained in the Mundaka, in the second wave, shloka 8. Avidyaya mantaram vartamana swayam dhira pandita, that particular shloka. What is the benefit of sakama karma, which is avidya? Anyata ahu avidyaya, which means karma. This gives benefit of only materialism, and that ends up with Krishna Gati and going to Swargaloka. Swami Param beautifully says it's movement from animal to party animal because of the materialism. So there is a different result of doing Sakama Upasana and another different result of doing a Sakama Karma. Man can choose between the two. Iti Shushrumadhiraha. This is what the Vedic rishis have said. And from when? From the Veda Parampara. From times immemorial. Who are these Vedic rishis? Yenata Vichakshire. They are the ones who have taught Karma Sadhana as well as the Upasana Sadhana. Vedas are meant for spiritual purpose, for moksha, for parama purushartha. So is also mentioned in the Isavasya Upanishad. However, we often do all these upasanas for material benefit, for the artha. And therefore, the real karma, real upasana, which is meant for something much higher, which is for peace, happiness, and security, is lost. And we end up with either shoka, moha, jugupsa, or samsara. That is the eternal problem, whether it is bhakti and karma which is important or jnanam which is important. To tackle this at a microcosmic level or an individual level is very well explained in the 9th to 11th shloka. If we look at two columns, left being the avidya or action and the right side being vidya or knowledge. Avidya is activities for survival, progress of civilization, secular knowledge. It's the realms of ignorance. It is worldly. It is kama karma. It gives rise to pitra loka, and they are die-hard materialists. Whereas the vidya is the knowledge of God and spirit, which is religion. It is religious knowledge. It's in the realms of iha amutra. It is kama upasana, giving rise to devaloka, and they are the die-hard religious saguna puja. Vedanta should be a happy combination of samuchaya or the combination of the two. Hari Om, sir.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Dr. Ravi Shankar. We benefit with your wisdom and understanding of both Karthik and Dr. Ravi Shankar. These are particularly cryptic mantras, and you have addressed the interpretation by Adi Shankar and the significance for us. Dr. Divakar, it's your time.
Om Gurubhyo Namaha. Vidyancha yastadvedho bhayasaha avidyaya mrityum tirtva vidyaya mritamashnuте. So there has been a nice build up to the 11th verse. Now in the 9th verse, Sakama Karma is talked about. And later on, now in the 10th verse, Nishkama Karma is talked about to underline that Sakama Karma is not the best way to do. Nishkama Karma is the best way to do. And now in the 11th verse, it is talked about doing Nishkama Karma or Nishkama Upasana separately is not so good. You will have to combine both of them, which is called as Nishkama Karma Upasana Samuchaya. So that is what is explained in this particular verse. Now, we all know that in order to become a true karma yogi, which is doing right action with right attitude, that is not going to happen without the upasana part of it. Without upasana, it will only be karma roga, but not karma yoga. As a karma yogi, we identify as two aspects within ourselves. One is the karta and the other is the bhokta. So right action, as we all know, what is that is prescribed in the Shastras, what is dharmic, Panchamahayagna and all of that. As a karta, in terms of attitude, we must have the Ishvara Arpana Bhava, and as a bhokta, we must have the Ishvara Prasada Bhava. Now the real question comes: how are we going to get this Ishvara Arpana Bhava and Ishvara Prasada Bhava if there is no Ishvara Smarana itself? We are so much attracted by the external world, sense objects, sense organs, that from the time of waking, we are in this Jagrat state and we get bombardings of the stimulus from the outside world. So Swamiji says, as soon as you get up, you start praying, start thinking about the Ishvara. So Atmatvam Girijamatihi Sahajara Prana Shariram Gruham. So invoke the Lord at the heart and convert the body itself into a temple. The other very beautiful shloka related to the same thing is Devo Devalaya Prokto Jivo Deva Sanatanaha Tyajate Ajnana Nirmalyam Soham Bhavena Pujaye. So body itself is a sacred temple which is the abode of this Jiva. This Jiva and Ishvara are eternal, are Sanatanaha. By removing our ignorance, we will become aware that Soham, I am none other than the Ishvara itself. That with that bhava, we will have to conduct ourselves from this time of waking itself. So these are Nididhyasana mantras. So we can chant any of these mantras. We also have Pratasmarami and continue to do that, because everything that we do after we wake up is a karma. Everything is an action. Some things are very mundane and we don't even think about it. In some other things, we are emotionally so driven that we are not able to think about the Ishvara. So without thinking about Ishvara, we will still be yielding into Raga Dveshas, and that will only increase our Ahankara and Mamakara. So here this verse categorically says, so practice this Karmopasana Samuchaya. And what kind of Karmopasana? It has to be Nishkama Karmopasana. So after that, what happens? You will have these 3 C's. Swamiji says 3 C's are: you will be always calm, you will be cheerful, and you will always be confident. If you're not any of this, despite the outside chaos, despite the problems, then you will have to look at your karmopasanas again and refine that. So there is a shloka also: sampato naiva sampatah, vipado naiva vipadah, vipada vismaranam vishnoh, sampad samsmaranam harehe. So if we remember the Lord, even the lack of the wealth will not disturb us. On the other hand, if we don't remember the Lord, even having a lot of wealth will also disturb us. So in this particular verse, Ubayam Saha Veda, if you practice both this Nishkama Karma and Upasana, then what happens? So Avidyayancha Mrutyum Tirtva. Avidyaya is beautifully explained earlier. This is the Nishkama Karma. Mrutyum here means Asuri Sampat. So it will help a person go out of Asuri Sampat, which means they're able to manage themselves, handle their Raga Dveshas. They will come out of Ahankara and Mamakara. From Vidyaya Amrutam Ashnute. Here Amrutam, Vidyaya is Nishkama Upasana. Amrutam is Moksha. Ashnute is attains. So are we given to understand that actually Upasana Yoga gives moksha? No. Swamiji explains this clearly. Eventually they will get into the moksha because they are on the right spiritual path. They will be getting Gnana Yogyata, and after that, either in this Janma they will get the moksha, and that is called as Sadhyo Muktihi. Or if they don't get the Gnanam in this Janma, they will go to Brahmaloka and get the Krama Mukti through teachings of Brahmaji. Hari Om, sir.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Divakar. All 3 of you have very brilliantly explained these 3 mantras without really overlapping. You were a nice synthesis and an understanding of those mantras which are normally wrongly interpreted, but you have got us the interpretation of Adi Shankara. We have another set of 3 mantras which deal with another similar form of Samuchaya. It is best discussed together, where we have Upasanas being considered for Samuchaya. It will be discussed together for Dr. Sundar. Sundar, it is your time.
Hari Om, sir. Gurubhyo Namaha. Am I audible, sir?
Very clear. Go ahead.
So we have a verse in the 2nd chapter of the Gita, Vyavasayatmika Buddhihi Yekeha Kurunandana. So while explaining this verse, Swami Param says that this Vyavasayatmika Buddhi describes the spiritual path or the spiritual approach a seeker has to take. And what is this path? So I take to Karma Yoga, purify myself. Then I take to Shravana Manana, I come to know. And then I take to Nididhyasanam and I abide in Brahman. So this path basically comprises of purify myself, know and abide. Purify, know and abide. 3 words describes, according to Swami Param, the spiritual path. So if I have purified myself, that is, if I have Chitta Shuddhi, Jnana Yogyata, Sadhana Chatustaya Sampatti, then I move to the first 8 verses of the Isavasya Upanishad. I go through Jnana Yoga, culminating Jivan Mukti or Videha Mukti. Suppose I do not have purity, then these set of 6 verses 9 to 14 describe various aspects of karma, various aspects of upasana, what to do, what not to do, how to do. And thereby I get Jnana Yogyata, Sadhana Chatustaya Sampatti. Once I have got this, I am at a Y junction. Suppose I get a guru and I get a provision to go through Jnana Yoga. Then I shift towards the first 8 verses, the Nivritti Marga and culminating Jivana Mukti, Videha Mukti. Suppose I do not get a guru, there is no provision for Jnana Yoga. I continue doing karma and upasana throughout my life. And during the time of death, when I know that I have not got through the Nivritti Marga, this Isavasya Upanishad offers another route, which is called as Krama Mukti, where I go to Brahmaloka through Brahmaji's advice, I get Jivan Mukti. Therefore, the Isavasya Upanishad gives us the entire gamut of Jnana Yogyata, Jivan Mukti, Videha Mukti, as well as Krama Mukti. So as discussed, the middle set of verses, that is 9 to 14, give us all the sadhanas, the karma, the upasana, the various ways of doing it, so that one gets the purity of mind, Jnana Yogyata or Sadhana Chatushtaya Sampatti. So karma and upasana have been described in the previous 3 verses. This set of 3 verses is going to dwell more on the upasana aspect. The first of these verses, that is verse 12, basically tells us what is the problem by doing sakama upasana. When upasana is done sakama, that is for selfish purposes, the result is going to be finite. So for example, in this verse, there are 2 upasanas that are chosen. But even otherwise, when you do sakama upasana, through your Ishtadevata, you get material benefits. It can be wealth, it may be health. All these have got doshatrayam. That is, they have bandhakatvam, atraptikaratvam, and dukkha mishritatvam. Even to the best of the material worlds, if you go, Abrahma Bhavana Loka, the Gita says that even for a Brahma Loka, it is a return ticket. It's a one-way ticket. I have to come back. Even when I'm there in those lokas, if I don't have the purity of mind, there are supra-sensuous pleasures. I end up time in doing things other than spirituality, and I get lost. For these reasons, the sakama upasanas are condemned. So in this verse, 2 such sakama upasanas are taken. One is Hiranyagarbha upasana, and the second is Maya or Prakriti upasana. So when I do Hiranyagarbha upasana, I go to Brahmaloka. I have told what are the limitations. When I do Maya upasana, I have merger with Maya or Prakriti. Till the next pralaya, I may not have rebirth, but after the next pralaya, I am born again. So it's a return one-way ticket. So this verse basically highlights the minus points of sakama upasana. Can we go to the next verse, sir? So the verse 13, if somebody says, okay, I do one sakama upasana, it may not yield me spiritual growth. What if I do multiple number of them? If I do 5-6 number of sakama upasanas, will it help? So this verse says how many number of sakama upasanas you do, it is of no use because they don't add up. The reason is the material result which is achieved are individual, they are distinct, they are separate. It's like saying, can I travel to Mangalore and Mumbai at the same time? It is not possible. So this verse says that the material result of any number of sakama upasana that you do will have distinct results, and thereby combination is not possible. Can we go to the next verse, sir? So this verse says, if you shift from sakama to nishkama, then magic happens. All the limitations which were there for a sakama upasana go. In the language of the 7th chapter of the Gita, what is being asked for us is to shift from being artharthi bhakti, where I am using God as means, as world as end. It is asking us to shift, become a jijnasu bhakta, where now I am using the world as a means and God as an end. So when one does that shift from sakama to nishkama, what happens is there is spiritual growth. Now I'm looking towards infinite. So there is result which does not have doshatrayam. And moreover, each of the nishkama upasanas that I do add up to give me chitta shuddhi or sadhana chatushtaya champatti or jnana yogyata. So when you do it the nishkama way, samuchaya is possible. How many number of more of sakama upasanas I do, they all add up. So the message for us is don't do any upasana the sakama way, but rather do it as the nishkama way. So if you do it sakama way, Swami Param says that on a cold winter night you are using sandalwood for fire. This upasana is meant to give higher results like moksha, liberation, jivan mukti. Don't use upasana for inferior results like material gains or money. That is the message of this verse. So Divakar nicely explained, if Samuchaya is successful, then you get 4 C's: calmness of mind, cheerfulness, we'll get courage and confidence. If Samuchaya is unsuccessful, then we go to the FIR. So there is an increase in frequency, intensity, as well as the reaction time. Now, I'm not going to the individual words of this for lack of time, but there are 3 words that we need to understand in these 3 verses. One is Sambhutim, the second is Asambhutim, and the third is Vinasham. Sambhutim means that which is born, that which becomes. So Sambhutim here refers to Hiranyagarbha, who is supposed to be the Pratamaja or the firstborn. Asambhutim, on the other hand, means that which is unborn, that which is unmanifest. So the reference here is for Maya. And the third word is Vinasham. Vinasham is again a reference to Sambhutim. Hiranyagarbha, who is Sambhutim, who is born. Anything that is born eventually has to go. Therefore, Hiranyagarbha, who is supposed to be the firstborn, has to exit also. And therefore, the reference for Hiranyagarbha for the word Vinasham. So with this understanding of Sambhutim, Asambhutim, and Vinasham, if we read these 3 verses, then it is like a sage opening us the lock. He is giving us the key with this. Without this key, which was given by Adi Shankaracharya, it is not possible to understand these verses. And like Sir said, these measures are to guard these valuable teaching in a way so that those who are not really eligible, those who are not really interested, don't reach it. That is why probably Ishavasya Upanishad is looked at as the first Upanishad to study, but it is also the most difficult Upanishad. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Sundar. That was really brilliant, because this is a really difficult set of 3 verses. It was nice that you covered it together. You brought out the meaning of the term Sambhuti, Asambhuti, Vinasha. You also brought about a nice triad of purify, know, abide. And you explained all these verses through our understanding from the Bhagavad Gita. Those who have had an opportunity to listen to the Bhashyam of Adi Shankara, you will know exactly on what basis he comes to these forms of interpretation. I'm sure you did not have the time, but within this small period of time, you gave us the importance of this set of mantras. And that is why we know the real greatness of Ishavasya Upanishad, because on the surface, these are absolutely irrational. We now come to another very delightful part of the Upanishad, where you have a set of 4 verses, which if we understand and if we are stimulated by all the speakers today, it is going to become our daily prayer. We begin with the beautiful prayer, Hiranmayena Patrena. Dr. Kiran, it's your time.
Am I audible?
Yes, Kiran, go ahead.
Every time I come across or read Ishavasya Upanishad, it is like preparing for the mathematics exam. It has always given me some sort of tension. Yeah, let me start reading this verse. Iranmayena patrena satyasya hitam mukham tatvam pushannu pavranno satya dharmasya drishtaye. Meaning, the face of the truth is covered by the golden disc. O Lord or Son, remove that lid for me so that I, a seeker of truth, may behold it. Perhaps the most confusing but also the most profound mantra of this already difficult Upanishad has 2 meanings. The first mantra, Ishavasya Idagam, said that everything is clothed or dwelled by the Lord. And this mantra, considered last by some consider this as last and rest of the things as Shanti Pata, as how to open that wheel or enter. Let us study the philosophical one first, as it is more relevant to us. Sir has already said, this spiritual journey does not involve gaining, but involves giving up. In this difficult journey, we have given up a lot, hopefully, attachment, possessions, relation, raga, dvesha, etc. As we stand on the threshold of enlightenment, it is only natural that our purified mind may start feeling elated, may get some sort of power or radiance. Why not? After all, we have given up so many things. What we must get some extra special, at least some bright light, hovering, signifying the end of darkness. As we stand on this threshold, Upanishad warns us and urges us to look beyond. One meditator had said, she feels like seeing 1,000 suns every day. What is the use of sunlight which is too blind? However bright it is, we can't make it. So it is a reflected light. So our Sir's hand experiment shows that light is only a reflection. A blind man cannot see light, however bright it is. So Brahman lies beyond, apparently covered by bright sun. So to go further, we need Guru and Lord. Our prayatna has brought us this far. From now on, our prarthana and sharanagati will lead us further. We don't require Guru or prayer for yama, niyama, karma yoga, etc. And it need not be taught by a Guru about Pancha Mahayajna. Just reading is enough, and most of us can grasp the seriousness or the benefits of it. Maybe for Upasana, we need some Guru. It is here further journey to seek the truth. We need total surrender to the Guru. I cannot find any other method other than Guru's feet to know the face of the truth and to be anchored, like today's invocation beautifully she brought out. Truth is neither dark nor light. It is truth. What does beggar knows the problem of the rich? As we overcome our hurdles, we think this joy or golden attraction or some special power we get, this is the end or this must be moksha, because we don't know beyond it. Only the person who has seen that beyond can guide us and say, you are on the right way or this is it. This is where we should, Guru is need. What is the face of the truth or satyasya mukham? It is neither dark nor light. It is twilight. That is most important to our culture. That is why the importance of Sandhya, etc. Na anta prajna, na bahish prajna, na upayata prajna. It is neither the knower nor the known. It is where both disappear. Only the knowing remains. That is the witness Sakshi or Chaitanya. Or it is not that I standing and looking at the truth as some objective thing. It is I myself become that truth. Then the truth becomes I, the seeker. That is in the last word, Drishve. The contextual meaning is given by Shankaracharya, where Kramamukti for seeker who for some reason is not able to go further. He requests for Shuklagati or Brahma Loka and then Gnanam there for Mukti, which is explained in chapter 8. So I will not explain further. Some consider this as last mantra and rest as Shantipata. I want to refer here to a Tagore's poetry where he said, like the last verse, I was looking for Lord everywhere, tried everything. At last I found the key. I reached the door. My hands trembled with fear as I stood at the door. I slowly turned back, for I feared if I make little sound, the door might open. And I ran and ran away. I am still looking for Lord everywhere. Only thing now is I look everywhere else. So this is what this particular mantra wants us. And to summarize, the first step is determination and strong will and effort. That is prayatna and sankalpa. The second step is surrender or sharanagati. So first is of meditation. The second is of prayer or prarthana for Guru's grace. Beyond to become beyond the knower, the known or Sakshi Chaitanya. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Kiran. A very nice explanation. This is what I want, that this should become our daily prayer. You have given the significance both from a Vedantic angle as well as from a prayer angle. And if it is a prayer, it can be both a morning prayer. And as we listen to the subsequent speakers, you know why this prayer can become our everyday evening prayer also. We listen to Dr. Komal. Komal, it's your time.
Yes, sir. So as already said, up to 14th mantra is the essence of Ishavasya Upanishad. 15th to 18th is the prayer part of it. So in the first part, the karma marga, which leads to Gnana Yogyata Prapti, is described. And in the second part, the Nivrutti marga, that's Gnana marga, which will lead to Gnana Prapti, is described. So this the prayer is from somebody who for some reason is not able to come to Gnana Marga, maybe Guru Abhava or absence of not getting a proper Guru at the right time, or some external obstacle like health. He is a Upasaka but not a Jnani. So this is sort of, in some places, Swamiji says, it's as if this Upasaka has spent his lifetime doing this Upasana, but he's unable to get into the Jnana Prapti, Nivritti Marga. So during death, at the time of dying, this is the prayer which he says, offering final prayers before death. O Lord, I should be able to travel through Shuklagati, through the solar disk, and enter Brahmaloka and then Moksha. That is how the sequence goes. So as described in Bhagavad Gita chapter 8. So Swamiji says about Ahangraha Upasana. So in which Lord is invoked in one's own self, which is done in some other times, like as in Sandhya Vandana, where Gayatri is invoked, Avahane. Gayatri is invoked on oneself. So what the verse says is Pushane Karshe Yama Surya Prajapatya Vyuha Rashmin Samuha Teja Yate Rupam Kalyanatamam Tate Pashyami Yosa Vasav Purushaha Soham Asmi. So within 5 names, Surya Devata is invoked here. Pushan, that is Sarva Poshaka. Ekarshe, lone traveler. Yama, the control of entire humanity, activities, rest, controlled by sunrise and sunset. Suryaha, Surya Bhagavan, one who resides in Surya. So who receives, who withdraws Rashmi, Jala and Prana. Prajapatya is son of Prajapati or Brahmaji. So what is requested here? Vyuha Rashmin Samuha, you please withdraw, to remove, temporarily withdraw, remove your race, because I am unable to go further because of the exuberance of the race. Then Teja, and to remove the scorching heat, that's a Teja. Yate Rupam Kalyanantamam, let me see your most auspicious nature. Tate Pashyami, Yosavaso Purushaha, that is Adityantara Purushaha, that's the Lord invoked in Surya Devata. Soham Asmi. So here there are 2 things. One is the samasti part of it, the totality part of it, which is the Hiranyagarbha, which is represented in sun, and I, Vesti, represented in me, the Upasaka. Here we have to remember, this is a prayer of a Upasaka, he is not yet a Jnani. So the technical question comes that this is the prayer of Upasaka and Ajnani technically. How does he see Jivatma, Paramatma, Aikyam when he says Soham Asmi? Swamiji explains here that Avahana is done, invoking is done without understanding the fact, without understanding it as a fact that I am everything, that Jnana is not there. Lord is invoked in Linga, Saligrama, in the similar way, God is invoked in myself. It's an imagination. It comes under Upasana alone, and that's called Ahangraha Upasana. It is an imagination and not understood as a fact. That brings to, that's why this is a little inferior compared to the prayers of a Gnani. That's why probably this is not taken as a Mahavakya, even though it mentions Soham Asmi. The fact is there, but it is mentioned as an imagination. It's the lesson which is taught, which is there, but it is the Upasaka has not internalized it. He's imagining, and he has not understood it as a fact. So here what I remembered was a poem from J.S. Shivarudrappa. Some of you may relate to that. Kanada Kadalige Hambaliside Mana. When he says, he knows there is a Brahman, he knows there is all the rivers will get into the sea, but he knows the magnificent nature of that. But whether he will reach there or not is a big question, because he doesn't have a proper route to go there. So that poem, if you have the time and the interest, I would suggest you to go through. So that is how the Upasaka is pleading to get to a proper route, but because for him there's no other way to moksha in this janma, because he is already in the last stages. So he has to get into Shuklagati, Brahmaloka, and then moksha. So this is the prayer of a Upasaka is something which we have to underline to understand the last 4 verses. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Dr. Komal. You and all other previous speakers have used your brilliance in understanding and communication in bringing the interpretation of these verses as clearly as possible within the available time that we go to two more verses which are a little frightening. When I first heard these verses, I had really goosebumps. When because you're getting ready for your own death, and from that day on, these have become a part of my evening. Rather, the word.
Good evening. Am I audible?
Yes, Radha, go ahead.
Okay. Vayuranilam amritam athedam bhasmantam shariram om kratosmara kritagam smara kratosmara kritagam smara. Like all the other speakers have beautifully brought out, especially in the last two verses of Dr. Kiran and Komal, it is very well established that these are the prayers of Upasaka or a person who is into karma and spent a whole life of prayerfulness. This is a last prayer, last desire, I can say, for a person who is well into upasana and done all the things that have been ordained by the Vedas. Now the person is in the deathbed. He knows the death is approaching. This is also a beautiful state because many people die without even realizing that they have come to the fag end of their life. So this person who has done so much upasana that he is aware that death is somewhere around the corner and he wants to leave the body in a very graceful manner. So whether we have achieved the Purna Jnanam or not, at least if the preparation has come to this level that my death is approaching and I have to leave this body in a certain graceful manner, itself is a very beautiful way of looking at life and death. This is a prayer by a person who is in the deathbed and he is expressing his last wish. After practicing a lot of karma, upasana, and probably doing a lot of agnihotras and all that, and all his life has been spent as per the shastras or whatever has been said in the Vedas. Now, when he's saying I am going to die, which itself means he is not a jnani. For a jnani, there is no death and no preparation for death because he has resolved everything while he is alive. So here he says Vayuhu Anilam Amritam. Vayuhu and Anilam both mean wind. But here he says two times because one is to represent the Samashti Prana and one is to represent the Vyasti Prana. His prayer is that when I have to die, my Vyasti Prana, that is the individual prana, has to gently leave my body and merge into the Samashti Prana, and it has to reach an Amritatvam. Because the word Amritatvam has come itself means it is not a Purna Mukti. He is looking for a longer extension, probably somewhere in Hiranyagarbha. So this is to indicate that my breath has to leave my body gently and merge with the breath outside, and this body which has been given to me for use has to be offered back to the Agni to be reduced to ashes, Basmantam Shariram. And this is addressing to Om, which is symbolic of the Lord. He's telling, oh Lord, in my last days, I want to give away my prana very gracefully and merge it with the samasti. And also this body which has been given to me, because he cannot do anything once he dies. So he's urging the Lord that let this body be given to the Agni Devata. And here he uses the word krato two times. One, krato is addressing the mind. He's telling his own mind, oh mind, please don't forget all the sadhana of my lifetime. Because this is the time, in the end time, I have to remember whatever I have done, whether I have meditated or whether I have done some japa, dhyana, namasmarana, whatever. Because all our scripture says that whatever your concentration or thought process is there towards the last leg of your life. From there, you are going to build a new life in the next life. So this is the understanding that when you depart from this world, you have to depart remembering the Lord, because that is the way you will be able to reconnect with your sadhana and finish whatever you have undone in this life. Here, he understands to the extent that death is coming and the prana and the body don't belong to me and both have to be handed over. But he still has something unresolved. He thinks after this he has to go to some loka, probably to get krama mukti, or to just take a long rest till the creation begins again. Here he is asking the Agni to be a witness to this process of his leaving the body. That is the 16th samskara of any individual. Why is he asking the Agni to be a witness? Because whenever we keep, hello?
Go ahead.
Whenever we keep somebody as a witness in any transaction, the witness has to testify. Like when we go to Kashi and all, there is some places where you have Sakshi Ganapati. It is said in Puranas that the Ganapati gives Sakshi that you had indeed come to Varanasi. Like that, he is asking the Agni to give Sakshi that this is how he has departed his body. And see to it, he is telling the Agni Deva, see to it that I get what I deserve. That is a better loka after my departure. Thank you.
Thank you, Radha. Thanks for reminding that if a person has Brahma Vidya, there is no question of death. So all these are not really relevant for a true seeker of Brahma Vidya. But also we know that even if you know everything, when the time comes to relinquish this body, it is not going to be easy. And therefore, it is very useful to have these prayers. Long back, I remember reading one poem that says, sunset and the evening star, one clear call for me, and may there be no morning when I set out to bar. So as you said, the true proof of how you lived well is how you, what is the state of mind when you are dying? And this is what it says, Krata Smara. You know, can all my upasanas come back? The prayer also says, Bhagwan, please be nice to me. Please forgive my sins. And I'm reminded of what Omar Khayyam said yesterday. My God is so big that he's not going to keep any account of my small sins. Dr. Ahalya, the last mantra on the same theme.
Namaste, Harihi Om. Sir, you have actually summed up the 18th verse beautifully just now. Anyway, picking on from where Radha left, Krito Smara, even as the person who is on his deathbed remembered all his sadhana, all the Nitya Naimittika karma that he had to do because he was in the Pravritti Marga, he invites Agni. This is the prayer of an Upasaka in Pravritti Marga on the last leg of his journey. This shloka is more on the lines of Samhita and Brahmana tradition, and as Dr. Kiran and others have been mentioning, this is more a Shanti Pata and not considered much of a Veda Upanishad mantra as per Adhyatma Prakashana Karyalaya Sachidanandendra Saraswati Swamiji. Bhagavad Gita says, Sada Tadbhava Bhavitaha. The last thoughts, the last moment thoughts are the culmination of thoughts of a lifetime. This shloka, Agnenaya Supataraye Asman Vishwani Deva Vayunani Vidwan Yuyodhyasmad Juhurana Menu Bhuyishtam Te Nama Uktim Vidhema. Agne and Deva from the first and the second line. Here he invites Agni. O Agni Deva, stand as the witness. Be the witness for whatever I have done. It can either be Agni Deva or it could be Sun himself, because from the 15th verse on, we have seen Hiranmayena Patrena Satyasyapi Hitam Mukham, and the word Patha, which is actually the Dakshinayana or the Uttarayana, the Krishnagati or the Shuklagati, so it could also be interpreted as Sun according to some commentaries. Vishwani Vayunani Vidwan. Vishwani is Samastani, all the karmas that we have done. Vayunani is the karmani, and Vidwan you are aware of. So we are calling upon Agni Deva, who knows about all the karmas that we have done so far. Supata Asman Naya. Asman Naya, may you lead us through Supata, Shuklagati, as we heard everyone from Dr. Sundar talk about the Shuklagati and the Krama Mukti Marga. In fact, the Vedic literature talks about two margas, the Dhumadi Marga, which is the smoky, dusty path of Dakshinayana, the Krishnagati, and the Achiradi Marga, the path associated with flame and light, the Uttarayana Marga. It would be interesting to remember that Bhishma, on the Sharashaya, when he lay on the bed of arrows, did not give up his body until Uttarayana came. Bhagavad Gita also talks about it. Shukla Krishna Gati Hyete Jagataha Shashvate Mate Ekaya Yatyana Vrittim Anyatha Vartate Punaha. The next word is Raye Karma Palaya. Forgetting the result of all sadhana, Krama Mukti Phalaya. For all the krama that I have done, lead me to that Krama Mukti. Juhuranam Yena. Juhuranam is Papa, the obstacle. Vakram is the actual meaning. So I might have done some Papa unknowingly, discreetly. Yoyodhi. Forgive me. Push them aside. The Papa that could be accumulated over a period, which can be an obstacle in my getting the Krama Mukti. So he pleads with Agni, I am old and I have no time left to overcome that Papa. So please keep them aside and lead me to Brahma Loka and to no other Loka. All that I can do now is Te Nama Uktim Vidhema. I am so feeble physically. Imagine ourselves in that state where we are absolutely helpless. I'm so feeble and weak. I can only offer verbal namaskara, not even the physical one. Bhuishtam, many times, again and again, I take your name and offer my namaskara. I want to pass away chanting your name and plead that I get Shuklagati and Kramamukti. So the elevation of mind and humility and obeisance is all that I am capable of now. Please accept it and bless me, implores the seeker. In fact, this is a very important thought even today in our tradition, to leave the world chanting the Lord's name. In fact, Aushade Chintayet Vishnu, Narayanam Tanutyage, as we heard you teach, sir. Of the 1,000 names, Narayana is the name that is often used. Dasa Sahitya in Kannada is full of this. Sharanu Hokke Naya Yanna, Marana Samaya Dalli Ninna, Charana Smarane Karunisaya Narayana, Kanakadasaru. Yanto Purandara, Vithala Rayana, ಅಂತ್ಯಕಾಲದಲ್ಲಿ ಚಿಂತಿಸೋ ಹಾಗೆ ನಾರಾಯಣ ನಿನ್ನ ನಾಮದ ಮಹಿಮೆಯ ಪುರಂದರದಾಸ. In fact, inspired by Dr. Kiran, I remember Tagore's poem, In one salutation to thee, my Lord, let all my senses spread out and touch this world at thy feet. So this is what Tagore also says. So this is about Narayana Smarana at the last part of our life. And this is what the 18th mantra talks about. Namaste.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Ahalya. Do you want to say something about Omar Khayyam's Kannada translation by DVG?
No, sir. I'll do that some other time.
All right. Because I know that we come to the end of today's presentation. I can't tell you how much I enjoyed all the speakers. Within a span of 60 minutes, 10 verses of Ishavasya Upanishad have been explained as per tradition. And I can verify this is the traditional interpretation. And the last 4 speakers have done full justice to stimulate us to memorize these prayers. Hiranmayena Patrena to Agnenaya Supataraye. Please, those who don't know this by heart, memorize these last 4 prayers, and let this be an evening prayer. Just like we have many prayers that we say regularly in the morning, like Karagre Vasate, let the day begin. And my evening prayer begins with Hiranmayena Patrena till Agnenaya Supataraye Asman. With this, we conclude to the study of the Ishavasya Upanishad, thanking each of the speakers and each one of you who have logged in this evening. Om Namada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnamevavashishyate Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Om Sarve Bhavantu Sukhinaha Sarve Santu Niramayaha Sarve Bhadrani Pashyantu Ma Kaschid Dukkha Bhak Bhavet. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.